Hey guys, so I had a bit of a longer video planned for today, but life stuff gets in the way sometimes, and yeah, so that'll be coming out tomorrow. I guess for the few people in my very, very small audience, that'll be exciting to hear. That video is gonna be me just breaking down like characters I would like to see in Marvel Rivals. Nothing serious, but it's the sort of thing that requires a little more editing, a little bit more writing. So, and I was working on it, and I just sort of realized, yeah, this is not going to come out today. So I figured I'd do a bit of a smaller video, just sort of going through the Polygon article that came out today with the Bill Trinen interview. Now, for those of you who don't know, Bill Trinen is this guy over at Nintendo of America, and I mean, now he's not as well known as he used to be, but he used to be like in every Nintendo Direct and at every E3, and he used to be one of the guys that you just always used to see, right? Like Onuma and Miyamoto, Reggie, Trinen. He was one of those. He isn't in as much of, he doesn't appear in as many of them anymore, but he still works at Nintendo. He's still a huge part of the company, and he recently gave a couple of interviews, one at Polygon, where he spoke about the sort of price controversy that's been going on. Now, I should emphasize that I've seen this sort of misrepresented a little bit online. Many people are saying that Bill Trinen gave this interview and said what he said as a bit of a response to the sort of intense backlash that happened when the prices were announced. I don't think that's what that is, especially because he gave this interview a day after the Nintendo Direct to Polygon during a Nintendo event. It doesn't seem very retaliatory. I think he's just getting into his reasons, and I just wanted to get into my thoughts on it. I'm a little bit brain dead today. I have like a writer's block thing, but I have to get it done. So essentially what he said, right, he was asked what you would expect people to ask, right? Like, hey, listen, your last console was $300 and it sold games at, $60 maximum. Well, I guess $70 if you count Zelda, which came out much later in the Switch's generation, but $60 is pretty much the standard, right? Or it used to be. And they asked him, like, come on, your console used to be $300, it's $450 now. I mean, what happened, right? Like, how is it this much more expensive? And he said essentially what you expected him to say, right? Like, factors like inflation and the fact that things have just been generally getting more expensive, right? Things like cost of living affect this. He also spoke about like how new features like the whole in-game chat and the advanced rumble and mouse feature, all these new features, new tech definitely adds to the price. And I mean, I guess I can see that. It is true that new devices or improvements on old devices tend to cost more than said old devices. So I mean, I guess, but $150 increase seems like a lot to me, but I don't have a huge issue with console pricing. I do think it's too expensive, but the thing about a console, it's the sort of thing you only buy once, right? Like, especially for somebody like me who plays a lot of games generally, $450 isn't that big of an investment, right? Because I know it's something that I'm going to use pretty regularly. But every case is different, right? I'm only speaking for myself here. I'm just saying that I don't think this is that crazy. Would I have preferred it to be less expensive? Absolutely. Did I expect it to be less expensive? Honestly, yes. I thought it was going to be $400, but it sort of is what it is. And $50 extra, I'm like, okay. It sort of just is what it is, especially for something, right, that is presumably going to last me like another 8 years. So I have no problem with that. My big issue, and I made a video about this, and you can look at it. That was one of my better videos. It was a little bit more written, a little less off the dome than I tend to be. And I guess tend to be is a weird way to say that because I've only got 4 of them. So I don't know if I tend to be anything yet. But yeah. So yeah, he spoke about that. More tech in the system, more features. It drives up the price. Inflation drives up the price. I mean, okay. I'm sure it didn't have to cost what it cost. And they also spoke about, like, I think this was a good question by, who wrote this article? By Russ Frushtick over at Polygon. And he asked him essentially, okay, so the reasons that you're citing right now for this, like, insane price increase for the console are essentially tech-based, right? That's what he spoke about, the new tech, the new features, and I think that's fine. So he asked him like, how come over in Japan, even though the system is essentially the same, except for the fact that Japan's the cheaper Japanese console you can buy over in Japan. I mean, you can buy both of them, the normal one or a cheaper version, but the cheaper version is only in Japanese and only plays games in Japanese, and the whole thing is in Japanese. Why is that essentially like $150 less than the other one if it's all tech? And he gave a pretty corporate answer like, oh, markets are different in different places and you respond to the needs of a market differently, and the cost of a country differently, and all those things affect the way that you sort of go about pricing. And I mean, okay, I don't know that that's much of an answer. Is it true that people in different countries pay for things or have different prices generally for goods? I guess it is true, right? But I don't know. It just seems like a bit of a nonsense explanation, at least for me, right? I think what's really going on is that Japan is such a huge market for Nintendo that they simply weren't to risk. They weren't willing to risk releasing the more expensive one exclusively, right? I think. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm sort of speaking out of turn a little bit here because I'm not sure. But I've heard people say that cost of living in Japan tends to be a lot less, but that also tends to be because people are just generally making less money. So I guess it would make sense. We'll have to see, right? But again, console, does it really matter? Not really. It's a huge price, but you're only ever going to pay it once. So whatever. I think what really sort of stuck out to me was the games, right? I mean, they asked him, of course, about like, listen, $80 games have never been a thing. I mean, of course, I mean $80 a starting price point, right? Not counting like special editions or collector's editions or shit like that. $80 is simply like the most expensive that a game has ever been at, like just a standard game, right? And they asked him about that, and he essentially got into it saying like, okay, like experiences, you know, that they sort of provide, every game is different, and we analyze each one to determine its price. Essentially trying to say that not every game is going to be $80, that they analyze each title individually to determine how they should price it, which is why you look at things like how while Mario Kart World is $80, Donkey Kong is $70, right? And I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Like pricing things differently depending on what they offer. I think particularly when you look at things like games, films, TV, it's sort of hard to determine the true cost of something. I mean, you can look at how much money goes into it, into making it, but it's sort of the value it provides someone. Like what makes a game like Mario Kart World the more valuable than something like a Hollow Knight, right? Which I think is $25, $15, right? I mean, Mario Kart World is probably the bigger game in terms of its like actual like size, right? Like literal gigabytes and like size of the in-game world. But is that truly providing a more valuable experience than something like Hollow Knight? I don't know. I think it's a very complex conversation, one that I'm not gonna start having here while discussing this article. I think it's something that probably deserves a video of its own. But yeah, I'm personally not convinced by that argument, again, by saying, like, what is the value of a game really, right? Like, GTA 5 is a huge game with tons of things you can do and tons of little features. But I guess in my mind, if I think about it, like when I compare it to a game like Mario Odyssey, a comparatively smaller game, I find that I remember Mario Odyssey much more fondly, and I remember it much more often than GTA 5, right? Like GTA 5 is a game that I played once, and I've never really gone back into it, whereas Mario Odyssey is a game that I play like once every couple of years. So again, but if you ask like your standard gamer who has only played maybe both of them once and hasn't had the time to really like process it in their mind, they might say that GTA 5 should be quote unquote like more expensive, or it's a more valuable experience. It's a very complex conversation. One that, again, I don't know why I'm still going on about it. I don't want to have it right now. But yeah, he also spoke about how technically games have gotten cheaper, right? Like if you look at inflation. But I've also, I mean, I spoke about it in the video before. Like when people talk about that, they don't account for like how much bigger games have gotten. Not only like games themselves, like they're much more bigger and complex experiences, but their audience, right? Like the the sort of foothold they have in pop culture is a lot bigger than it used to be back in the day. Which means that people are spending much more on them, right? Like companies like Nintendo are certainly not hurting right now. I mean, the Switch is still the same price it was back when it released. So yeah, but anyway, and I'm quoting from the article directly here. Trinan went on to say that Nintendo does look at each title individually when determining pricing, and its decision making. It's based on a variety of factors, and this is what Trinan had to say. Right? We take an approach of looking at what is the experience. What are players going to enjoy out of this game? What is the length of the game? What is the volume of the experience? How in-depth is it? And then we price appropriately based on what we think the value of that experience is. And so a good example would be something like Tears of the Kingdom on Nintendo Switch. We did price that at a higher price point, but that didn't mean all of a sudden that every game on Nintendo Switch was all of a sudden priced at that higher price. And I mean, I hear this and I'm sort of like, okay, and right, like, you know what I mean? Like saying, yeah, we charge this much for this one game, but we didn't charge that much for other games. Well, yeah, right. Like most of the other games you released were before $70 were like the standard pricing for games, right? So that's not really an argument. Nintendo didn't make some bold move by making Tears of the Kingdom $70. Games had been costing $70 for like a year at that point, right? It wasn't like Nintendo. I don't know. It just, I'm not convinced by this argument that like they looked specifically at Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and decided it should be $70, right? Like what actually happened was that other AAA companies and other AAA studios started charging $70 for AAA games, and Nintendo said, okay, we can do it too, right? And you can see that now, right? Where even though Donkey Kong Bonanza isn't $80, it's still $70, right? And you still have Switch 2 editions, which is literally just Switch 1 games that like upgraded, that are, some of them are $80, right? So are you really telling me that it's all based on the experience, or is it more that like simply you know that now you can charge more for AAA games, so that's what you're doing, right? So I'm not convinced. But again, I mean, I don't blame Bill for this, right? I mean, Bill, at the end of the day, he's a Nintendo employee, right? He's only doing his job when he gives out these interviews, even if he comes off as a little bit spineless. I don't blame him. It just sort of is what it is. But yeah, and then he went on to say, and so similarly with something like Mario Kart World, with something like Donkey Kong Bonanza, we're really looking at the experience saying, okay, we feel this is an appropriate price, taking into account a lot of these other factors that are just impacting price or overall in this day and age, right? Like I said, again, I think games and things in general getting more expensive, it's, I don't know if normal is the word, right? I mean, because $60 games have been the norm for so long. I mean, you guys don't understand. You could look at, and Bill mentioned this in the article, Donkey Kong Country for the SNES was $60, and that was more than 20 years ago, right? And it stayed that way for so long until they started costing $70, and then 2 years later, now they're going $80, right? So, yeah, I mean, I don't even. I guess I just don't know how to feel about it. I think Bill here, he's sort of just saying what he has to say. Again, I don't think that he's saying this as some sort of response to the controversy. I think Nintendo was always expecting people to sort of be a bit in uproar when they announced their prices. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I'm not convinced by anything he has to say. I don't particularly believe him. I think you can look at the whole picture and see what's going on pretty clearly, right? Like if this was genuinely just a case of this game is just so new and offers so much, and it's just such a wildly cool experience that we have to raise the price, then why in the world are Switch 1 games, right? Like games that were developed for hardware that is literally less powerful than your phone, also costing $80 simply because they're now on Switch 2 with like better graphics. I don't know. It's I just don't know how to feel about it. And again, who knows? I mean, Nintendo isn't known for lowering their prices. They certainly didn't lower their prices for the whole Switch generation. But I would argue that that was because, first of all, the Nintendo Switch, which is wildly successful, but second of all, because those prices weren't that different from like prices in general, right? Like within the gaming space, right? If you paid $60 for a game on a Nintendo console, you would probably be paying $60 for a game on another console, right? Like Nintendo was just keeping pace with the other companies. It just wasn't lowering their prices, right? But when you pay $60 for a game, you don't feel like you've been cheated because you've always paid $60 for a game, right? That's just sort of the way that it's always been, right? The Nintendo Switch was $300, so it didn't feel like that crazy of an investment. I mean, yeah, now it's different. So do I expect Nintendo to change their prices? No, not really. But who knows, right? Like maybe they release the Switch, and I think the Switch will sell well. But who knows? Maybe Mario Kart doesn't sell as well as they expect it to. As an $80 game, maybe $90 if you're in Europe, and they end up lowering the prices. Maybe they look back like, oh, maybe that was too much, right? But I guess to do that, the only thing you can really do, right? I mean, because I just don't know, because Mario Kart is just so big. I guess, vote with your dollar, right? That's certainly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pay $80 for Mario Kart. I might pay $80 for the Duskbloods just because I'm a fanboy, but not for Mario Kart, just to show them what's up, right? Well, anyway, I guess that's all I have to say about that. I know it's not the highest quality thing. Today's been a long day. It's been a lot. So, anyway, that's it from me today. Marcy, signing out.
Comunque poi ci avete un sacco di poteri in suicidato, ma non disoccupati, orfane di madre, innamorati di una donna che non tiene capo. Ma non si creano prima perché scherzi. Moro come avuto, ma basta che non mettono da schiena e prima ci esercitare. No, a casa mia.